Send your love.
Ladies and gentlemen, take your seats, please. We'll get our meeting started. We can all rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. Happy holidays and a Merry Christmas to all. Do we have any conflict of interest statements to turn in from board members and anybody else? Nope. Okay. Let's move on then to number 3, presentations. We're fortunate to have with us representatives from the Corpus Christi Police Department tonight, Captain Sanders and Commander Breedlove. Would you fellows like to come up and address the group?
It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Billy Breedlove. I'm Commander with the Police Department. I'm the Operations Bureau Commander. So I have about 300 officers that report to me. We are broken up in 4 different districts. We have an Adam district out in Cal-Allen, Annabelle, Delta downtown, the Charlie district's on the south side of town, and the Bravo district where you live is made up of Flower Bluff, a little bit of the south side, and of course the island, which is most important to you. I have great men and women that work for me, and they're out there every day dedicating their service to our citizens, try to keep you all safe, protect your property, and enhance the public safety of our roadways. And that's sometimes through traffic enforcement where you may end up meeting them on the side of the road. I hope not. All those things that we're doing is trying to improve the safety of our community and the quality of life, and basically make our city a better place to live. I have with me tonight, it's a pleasure to introduce your Bravo District Captain. So he's the captain that is directly responsible for the officers that work out here. And he will give you his contact information and any problems you have in your neighborhood. Make sure you get a hold of him. He will give those problems attention, whether it's crime related or traffic related or just quality of life for you and your neighbors. We'll be glad to provide some assistance in that. I was fortunate to be Bravo Captain back in 2008 to 2010, so I really do have a great passion for the island and you're a unique part of our community. Y'all really make up a unique part of Corpus Christi, and it brings some challenges that are unique to our community, so it's good to have a good leadership out here who we take care of. This, I think, is the second time around to be around. So, all right, Captain Sanders.
I didn't really have a speech or anything. My name is Anthony Sanders. I'm a captain. I've been on the department for about 17 years now. I'm not from Texas, and I'm originally from North Carolina. I was in the Navy. I did 10 years in the Navy. I'm a Navy veteran. Bravo District is unique. I sort of like to break up Bravo District, and it could really be 3 different sort of cities. You have the island, and then of course you have the Bluff, and then we have our portions on the south side, from Staples to the Bluff. And so, like as Commander said, those pose unique challenges. So what normally ends up happening is that calls of service sort of drive the direction of which way the officers are heading. So a lot of times, south side, they may have tons of calls, just saying a particular night. And so those calls are sort of answered on a case-by-case basis, just as a priority. Specifically for the island though, let me give you a few numbers. And this is actually for the district. Since January 1st, For the entire district, there's been about 1,006 felony arrests, 3,372 misdemeanor arrests, 421 general citations, 11,522 reports written, 212 DWIs, bill contacts, 46 roughly, calls for service 62,190 actually. So those numbers are real, you know, and so we're dealing with, we're right at about 4950 officers. In particular, let's go back to the island again. I don't really, and what we do is we look at the numbers. We have a bi-weekly, it's called ComStats, computer statistics. We have a meeting, and then we crunch the numbers. We look at where all the calls coming from. For the most part, the island, I know we made some key arrests here. There were some burglaries. There were some burglars going around about 3-4 weeks ago. We made some good arrests, and I think it sort of died down. I will tell you, the main thing that's been killing, you know, a lot of the numbers are doors left unlocked, garages left open. So if I can just emphasize nothing else for us tonight, please just do that portion of it. Because a lot of times they're just crimes of opportunity. So they're just driving by and they're like, hey, there's like 4 Yetis right there. Let me just go meet them and just go say hi. So, and then they're gone. And also, we do know though, the numbers, I'm not gonna say they're skewed, but a lot of times those don't get reported. Because guess what? You're like, oh man, you know, I should have put it up, it's on me. But please, if that does happen, please still give us a call. Please give us a call, because if we don't know where, you know, the reports come in from, we don't get a, we call them sort of a hot spot. So just say if you have 3 calls on one street in a week's time, well, that's gonna pop up on our statistics as a hot area. It's gonna be a hot spot on the map. So if we don't know that, if you don't call and report that, we can't get the officers to come in and sort of focus in on that particular area. I know we have another location over on, I believe this is Bounty. We're dealing with that. I think it's gotten better, but it does need more work. So, does anyone have any questions for me?
Go ahead.
What was the phone number?
361-461-4628. My email address is anthonys@cctexas, and spell Texas out.com. cctexas.com. The best way, honestly, to get in contact, just send me a quick email. I'm always constantly checking my emails. If there's an issue on a particular street, please, you know, call, send me an email, and I'll call you back, or one of my lieutenants or one of the officers will call you back. Come out and meet you. But I think
I'm not looking to bother you or call you.
Okay.
I just think it's a great number to have.
Okay. Absolutely. I'm in contact with Marta a lot. She's very active with the department, and so just give us a call if you have anything. But for the most part, though, no real trends out on the island. Like I said, those couple of individuals that we had got arrested, but if you could just do your part on that, you know, locking everything up and doors, your job won't build doors. Because when you go through the report, you're like, yeah, I left it alone. And it happens. It happens. Any other questions?
Is there any talk about adjusting the, what do you call them, the districts or whatever? Have y'all, how long have they been the same? You know, the A, B, and all that?
Yeah, so we've had when I started, we had 5 districts, but we were on 8-hour shifts, and then we went to 10-hour shifts, we went to the 4 districts. And actually, Bravo District has changed occasionally, where we had only 6 officers on a shift, and we had a smaller portion. We only have Flower Bluff on the island, and we've had some talks about that. But what it really comes down to is you have to have enough supervisors to, when you do that, 6 officers here, that leaves like 14 officers to a supervisor in town, and you don't have that control that we'd like to have. So we'd like to have about 8 officers for span of control for supervision and some of y'all may be managers and stuff, and that probably sounds about right. 14 might sound a little high, 6 too low. So that's one of the things we take into consideration. One of the things we did do, right when I was promoted, which was back in April, is I did a call load analysis and looked to see where I needed manpower, and Bravo District needed manpower, and we were able to shuffle some troops from other areas that the analysis didn't say met, and we added 5 officers to that, to the Bravo District. And we run 10-hour shifts, so if you think about it, you get about 30 hours of coverage per beat a day. So there's overlap in some areas. And then the island also, you'll have the taxing district that has that other officer that comes out just dedicated to the island. You have 2 beats out here, so you have 2 officers, and that's one thing also the captain knows that I demand from him, that there's always the beats on the island will be staffed before we. So if end up we have an officer calling sick, or we're not, because sometimes some of the shifts have 9, 10 officers on them with 8 beats. But let's say we have a shift with 8, an officer calls in sick, but he usually works the island. Well, someone else is going to work the island because it's, like we said, it's unique. It's geographically separated. It's not like to have one officer out here on his own, something happens, his backups has to come from town. Or if you are living out here and it's a 2-man call, we need to have 2 officers showing up at the same time. So realistic, if you think it in one day, 24-hour period, you have about 68 hours of police manpower on the island, which is, I think, if you look at your call load, this probably fits that quite well.
Yeah, from your experience, we have about, say, 10,000 people who live here. If we were an independent town, and we had our own police department, how many officers would work for this police department?
Well, you have to think, when we talk about the Bravo District, that's about 50 officers. But then there's a whole other support group of officers, detectives that you would have to hire, you would need, that are in town, that handle the cases that are made out here. We have a traffic unit that sometimes you may see there on the motorcycles, so they get added out here occasionally. They're not part of the district. We got a narcotics unit that does, I got promoted out in narcotics, and we did several search warrants out here on island, where may know or not know there's occasionally some drugs out here. And so it'd be hard for me to just give you a number. I'd have to look at all of those things, and then you have to come up with a whole other command structure. You gotta have a chief, you gotta have assistant chiefs, people over supervising all those areas. So you might look at cities that are around 10,000 in South Texas to probably come up with that number. But I tell you, when you get us, you get a whole 50. It may sound like a small number, but it comes with about 300 or 400 other officers with that. And then you talk about a SWAT team with that, but you need a dive team, K9 unit, bomb squad. So it really starts growing. So, and it's expensive to run the police department. Remember that too. Public safety takes up quite a bit of any city's budget. Usually between police and fire, it's well over 50%, no matter where you go. So does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
There was a program some years ago called, I believe it was Camera Pick, and it allowed businesses and homeowners to register their cameras with the police department, such that if there was an incident that happened, then you had access or knew who to contact or could reach out to people in those areas. And I don't know that that program is still available. Is that something that could be started back up out here on the island?
I recall that program years ago, and I don't know whatever has happened to it, but I don't think it really got off the ground that well. I think Chief Riggs maybe was the one that was starting it, and it took a third-party vendor, I think, and that comes with expense, and I don't know if we ever were able to afford to do that. But we do have a VSOM. We do have a pretty good city camera. Has anyone ever gone to the city's cameras? Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good system, and so. But that's something we can take back as an idea if y'all are interested in that.
I know, do you have what's the neighborhood pages? Next door. Do you have that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure.
that's okay as well. I know a lot of citizens complain that just tends to be a lot of just sort of, it sort of gets kind of counterproductive. That's just what we hear a lot of times from, somebody complaining about something that doesn't have anything to do with the mission of the software. But we can definitely look into that, and I agree. I haven't heard anything else on that either in some time.
Anybody? There's one in the back here.
Do we still have our policemen on the bike patrol?
Yes, we do. We have, we do. We have, it's called a crime reduction unit. It falls under, and I should be in charge of that unit, but it's, we have bike officers as well. And they come out, based on, I know we've used them over in the bluff some. I think they've been out here on the island.
Usually during the summertime.
Well, we do. I mean, they wear shorts, so they gotta. But yeah, we do have them.
Thank God.
We do still have them.
You guys, well, the city has a mobile app, Corpus Christi Mobile, I think is what it's called, where, we have street issues.
Yes.
Does that associate with you guys at all, or is that just strictly for, like weeds and road and things like that?
Well, sort of both of them, because when you use the portal, it goes in, it'll go to a call center, and depending on what it is. So a lot of people may or may not know code enforcement falls under the umbrella of the police department as well. And that's in administration, I think. But depending on that, we do have officers that go out with the code enforcement officers. They're called directed patrol officers. I know Imelda or Rasco, she's been coming out here this is her beat. So it just sort of depends on the call. If it's a brush, homeless camp, or we have something like that, it will get sent to us eventually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
All right, next up, update on Billish Park, Mr. Craig Thompson from Hanson Engineering.
Howdy, happy holidays, thank you for having me. We're getting to the end of the project. You can look over across the street. We've got turf down, we've been irrigating. This last month we did, on November 14th, we did an initial final walkthrough with the city parks folks were here, Jim Smock, executive director, Marvin, myself, and the landscape architect I've been working with. We did a walkthrough. We came up with several punch list items. The barbecue pits, there was some rusting on the barbecue pits that we noticed. The weeds, there were some issues with some weeds. They had just put down the last post-emergent treatment, and we still saw some weeds going on. The sidewalks, there were some concerns with some of the finishing, some of the edging was cracking off. The irrigation system, there was a final closeout needed on that, and some issues with the sod. And what we talked about was to get some rolling, which is required within the specifications on some of the areas of the sod that looked relatively uneven. We came out about a week after that and met with the sod installer. We recognized about half of the park, the southern portion of the park needed the rolling. He didn't feel like the northern portion of the park, which is the older portion of the sod, needed to be rolled. We agreed with that, so they came out and rolled that, and we came out last Thursday, myself and Alan Byer, again the landscape architect, working on this project with me, and we walked it with Jim. Looked at the areas that had the sod rolled. It looked better, we're getting close. There were some barbecue pits that still had some rust on it, and so what we're left with are a few items that kind of still remain hanging out there. I'll tackle those individually. The sidewalks, what I believe I'm going to ask for, and I've had some preliminary discussions with the contractor, is instead of any kind of demolition or pulling the sidewalks out, I'm going to ask for some extended bonding and warranty on that on those sidewalks. I'm going to ask for probably 5 years of bonding, and so what they'll do is for that cost to replace that sidewalk, they'll purchase a bond and we'll keep that bond for a period of 5 years. So if there are any cracking or any issues with it, that bond can be used to replace whatever needs to be replaced. And then after 5 years, it will go away and the sidewalks. I guess my point is that we will be able to see if there are any construction issues on that sidewalk within that time period. The barbecue pits, there's still some issues. I still have to sit down and talk to the contractor about those. There's still some rust that needs to be scraped off and painted over, and so I will deal with that. So on the sod, we have some warranty we have warranty on all the items out there. We have a 1-year warranty on most all of the construction items. The sod itself only has a 6-month warranty. The trees have a 1-year warranty. What our plan of attack with the sod, there are some areas that still have some weeds growing up through it. We met with the contractor, with the sod installer, and with the landscape architect, and our plan of attack with those weeds, we feel it's best right now to let the grass grow in. We've noticed most of those weeds are in some of the seam areas between where the sod was placed. The sod installer and the contractor and the landscape architect all agreed that letting that grass kind of grow in and fill that area and choke those weeds out is probably best. We're never going to get rid of all the weeds out here. That's just the way that it's going to be, but we feel like the best attack right now is to let that grass grow in. There are some areas of the grass that don't look great. We've noticed that. I'm sure you'll notice that as well. And our plan of attack on that is to come back in about 3 or 4 months once we've kind of come into a little more of a growing season to look at those areas. We've already identified some areas, but to see how those areas are doing. And if they need to be replaced, they'll be replaced. We've got a 6-month warranty on that sod, which will start when we close this project out, which we'll do a final closeout, which will probably be in the next couple of weeks. And same with the trees. There's no reason to go and replace trees. We know that there are several trees out there that are going to need to be replaced. We're not going to replace them in December. We're going to keep an eye on all the trees out there. We've got a 1-year warranty, and in the spring, if we start to identify some of those, we'll be back with the contractor. We'll replace those. Let's see, and we're going to continue the watering. We talked about the watering regime with the sod installer and with the contractor and also the landscape architect. We're going to keep watering a couple times a week. And then in the springtime, when it heats up a little bit, we'll continue a little more vigorous watering on that as we take a look at it. So you're not done with me yet. I'll be back here in a few months to take a look at the warranty issues with the sod. And then, of course, a year from now, we'll hope that all the trees are growing, and if they're not, we'll be replacing those. The only item after that remains to be completed, and it's outside the contract, but it's something that we're going to get installed at no cost to the PIPOA, are the poles for the volleyball courts. I want to get this contract completed, release their retainage. We are withholding, I believe, 10% of their retainage right now. We need to release that so that they complete this contract, and then we'll get with the installation of the volleyball poles. So, any questions?
Anybody else on the board? Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next on the agenda, our auditor's update, Nita Jayroe from Jennings, Hawley and Company.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to give you just a brief overview of the different type of services that CPAs can perform according to financial statements. The highest level of service is an audit, which we perform for the PIPOA. The objective of an audit is the expression of an opinion about whether the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in conformity with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles, or the abbreviation that you probably hear is GAAP. This audit includes test of accounting records, where we actually look at deposits, journal entries, and disbursements. The next level is a review, and a review requires performing inquiry and analytical procedures, not actually looking at deposits, journal entries, or disbursements. The lowest level is a compilation, which requires the accountant to just assemble the information that we receive from management in the correct form. There's a couple of different bases that financial statements can be used. The one you're probably most familiar with is cash basis of accounting. In cash basis, income is recorded in the year it's received, and expenses are recorded in the year they are paid. Purchases of fixed assets are expense, and no depreciation expense is recorded. Unrealized gains and losses on investments are not recorded, and these gains and losses would only be recorded when the investment is sold. And the investment of this type of example is your marketable securities. The only accounts on the balance sheet in a cash basis would be cash, the investments recorded at the cost basis, and your fund balance. There would be no liabilities and no fixed assets. There's a modified cash balance that uses the accrual for long-term balance sheet elements, such as fixed assets. The cash basis would be used for the short-term items, such as accounts payable and accounts receivable. Under the accrual basis of accounting, income is reported in the year earned, and expenses are deducted in the year incurred. Accruals of receivables and payables at year-end are required for accrual accounting. Accruals of losses from uncollectible receivables, if a loss is probable and can be estimated, is also required. Expenses such as insurance that will be used in operations during the next 12 months are reported as current assets or prepaid expenses. And they're expensed over the term of the insurance coverage. Unrealized gains and loss on investments are reported according to the market value of those marketable securities. One problem I've noted in audits, reviews, and compilations when the cash basis is used is that an entity may show a large profit when they actually have past due payables, and because the payables aren't paid, the expenses were not recorded. So this entity may actually have a large loss instead of a profit if the accrual basis was used. Some entities use the cash basis, but at year end, they accrue accounts receivable and accounts payable and look at the different things like the prepaid expenses that are really for the next year. So that's an option to use a more simple basis, but have it transferred to accrual at the year end. During the audit, I noticed several different problems. One of the main ones was poor internal controls. With internal controls is a method to safeguard your assets, that no cash is dispersed without it being approved. And it checks the accuracy and reliability of your accounting data. If there's no one to check your accuracy, you don't know if those records are good or not. And it also promotes operational efficiency. Another item I noticed was the lack of authorization and documentation for transactions. One of these items was disbursements. The authorization could have been done during the time of the disbursement, but if it's not documented, there's no way to tell later on. Those employees may be gone, and that's why documentation, we actually need signatures on those type of things. There were journal entries that reclassified different accounts in the general ledger that had no memos, no reasons, and there was no clear understanding of why those journal entries were made. There were multiple credits on owner assessment accounts with no documentation, no reasoning, and no explanation. And there were some authorization signatures documented that appeared to be cut and pasted from other documents. There were multiple offsetting accounting entries that were unnecessary and caused confusion. These offsetting entries did not completely net out in 2017. In 2018, there were 3 months early in 2018 where the revenue was incorrectly recorded instead of recording the entry to accounts receivable. The amount of these mistakes was around 1.2 million. So your income statement would have been overstated by 1.2 million. Those have now been corrected. And there's some problems with the builder's liability deposits. Reconciliations have been attempted, but some of the deposits in 2017 have insufficient detail on the source of payment. So without that detail, it may be impossible to do a full reconciliation for those. Another problem that was noted was the association's bank account was used for fundraising or some other project that was not the association's project. It wasn't like for a park, for like Billish Park. Another item was failure to file liens on properties with past due assessments. I believe that's been rectified and that is in process now. Another item that was noted was AFLAC insurance coverage for non-employees was allowed, and it appeared that these insurance payments were deducted from these contract laborers' payments, but when they're not authorized or documented, it's hard to tell if they were really deducted. And this should not be allowed anyway, because any person that's not an employee does not have that benefit. Another item is there's no report of future major repairs and replacements in place, and I believe that's being addressed by the board now. My firm was selected to begin the audit in July. Completion of the audit was delayed due to the daily accounting duties performed in August, September, October, and part of November instead of working on the audit. And also it was delayed due to the magnitude of the corrections that we found, which I just described to you. Do you have questions?
Yeah. We're not gonna take questions from the audience here. I do have a question. So that everyone is clear, this audit was for what year?
For 2017.
All right, and was this a standard audit for nonprofits?
No.
Okay, what was it then?
It was, because of the magnitude of the errors we found, first we put a scope for an audit, and if everything looks okay, and there's not that many corrections made, we keep the same scope. If there's a large amount of errors found, you have to increase the scope so that we basically looked at just about everything, every invoice. There were a couple of invoices that we couldn't find, but we looked at basically every invoice that was paid in 2017.
And was this a forensic audit?
We don't actually do forensic audits, but we don't normally do an audit in this scope unless we find many problems.
Anybody else?
I've got some questions.
Brent?
Thank you, Marvin. So I'd like to just go down through this list. I think
Okay.
this was we got an email from Jim Smock that listed the kind of the topics that you just went through. And some of them were pretty, this is the first time I've seen anything format that never had you personally, so I've got some questions that just interest me here. Have you guys, has your firm reached out to or visited previously or with the previous CPA that performed these services?
Yeah.
And did they give you any explanations for some of these questions that you had? Like the journal entries and things like that? Because they did those.
Yes, your bookkeeper changed.
Yeah,
And
but I'm.
that makes a big impact
Sure.
on your account. I don't know. Oh, no, it is.
Okay, very good. So the CPA, you have visited with them to get some clarification with some of these, but some of this is still
We
unclear.
visited with her before we started,
Okay,
because that's an accounting procedure. We have to talk to her about, were there any problems, why was she not doing the audit this year? And then we did visit with her later to know if she encountered some of these problems.
so that's Ms. Klosterman?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Something that really, item number 2, lack of authorization and documentation for transactions, including item D, authorization signatures on some documents were cut and pasted from other documents.
They appeared to be cut and pasted,
How many times did you find that? Was that,
just a few,
so 3 or 4?
3 of them.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm real interested in that. Do you know whose signatures they were,
I don't recall.
or what position they were in?
It was one of the bookkeepers.
No, I mean, the bookkeeper's signature? Or was it an officer or a board member?
It was not an officer or board member.
Okay. So,
It was an employee of the POA that had the authority to authorize items.
but whose signature was cut and pasted?
I don't recall. I can look in my records and tell you later.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in that, 'cause if
Okay.
it was mine,
It
I'd definitely like to know if my
was
signature.
it was not a board member.
Okay.
It was an employee.
All right, and when you say on item 5, deposits with insufficient detail on source of payment, deposits not made timely, what is a timely deposit typically?
You should make deposits every day. Some of the deposits were held for a couple of days, some for more than a week. And also, if you mix deposits together for several days. And also, if you don't detail, if you have cash and you don't detail
Sure.
what the cash is for, you can't go back to the daily record and know these 5 days are deposited here because it was such random deposits. The timing of the deposits was very random. And it may have been because there wasn't a large deposit, but that's not a good reason not to deposit daily.
Okay.
And that's also a reason that I think you should consider not taking cash deposits. It's very inconvenient for the members if you go in to buy a sticker, but it really impacts your internal control. And if you want good internal control, you really should pay by check or credit card. And that eliminates totally that problem of keeping up with the cash.
Or have a good system of giving receipts and entering those into your budget.
But also, if you can also make out receipts for what you're taking in, but then you'd be required to number all the stickers and keep up with the catalog of all those stickers by number and be able to tell when they were sold and when it was deposited.
Okay.
So that's why not taking cash would be a big improvement for our internal control.
All right, thank you.
Can you explain the $1.2 million, what did you call it, a misadjustment or something?
The revenue in 2017, the revenue is posted when the statements go out in July. So that's around 1.6 or 1.7 million dollars. It's on the accrual basis. It's recorded when the statements go out. When the money was collected, it was recorded as revenue again, and what they were actually doing is recording it as revenue again when they took the cash in, and then they would do a contra transaction where they reversed it in another revenue account and applied it to accounts receivable. It's really just one entry. It's you receive the cash and it goes to accounts receivable. You don't report it as revenue again. In 2018, there were 3 months, February, March, and April, which are your big collection months, where the revenue was recorded as cash and then recorded as revenue again, but that entry to accounts receivable was not made.
And that's a bookkeeper function that made that choice?
Yes. And it's just recording it twice as revenue and then reversing it out of accounts receivable. It's just,
Extra step.
yeah, it's extra step and it's incorrect.
Yeah.
And it's just, sometimes it's a way to confuse the books too, with all these multiple entries that are incorrect and unnecessary.
And speaking of confusing the books or whatever, as far as you've gone to date, have you found anything that is indictable, or, you know, is there, have you found any crookedry? Is there any money missing? Is there,
The problem with
the
money.
difference between poor judgment and illegal is clear to me.
No, we can't say that there's any money missing. The problem with taking money in is if you don't record it and you don't deposit it, you don't know what you took in.
I got it. Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for helping.
And also, if your stickers are not numbered, you don't know if you sold any that were not paid for or the money was taken.
Okay, Marvin, can I ask another question?
Sure, go right ahead.
So, is there any way to balance we know how many stickers we ordered, right? We should have bought whatever it was,
Well,
5,000.
to know that, you would have to know how many you bought at the beginning of time, and every time you delivered, every time you sold.
Yep.
So if you want to go to the beginning of the time, you can do that.
Okay, yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so basically, I'm saying that's pretty impossible.
Okay, so back on Carter's question, I'm curious too, because I think the angst or some of it is, the poor practices versus missing money. Is there missing money that you found, either whether it's $50 or $50,000 or $500,000?
No,
Is there any evidence of any money missing?
no, because if the money was missing, it's probably smaller amounts that were from ticket sales, or it could be.
But there's no reason, you have not found any reason that suggests there's money that's missing. Because I can tell you, if I said there's a bucket over there, there's not a bucket over there full of money in front of that door. So we don't just normally assume that a bucket full of money left. Somebody would have had to say, there was a bucket full of money, and now it's gone.
Right,
That's
you
what
would,
I'm missing.
you would have to record that money coming in, and then, someone would take the money and not record it being paid.
But so
That's
eliminate
possible.
the
But that's-
cash, all problems solved.
Some problem solved. There's still items like, through the years, we look at many years of the statements for the owners, and there were credits and there were adjustments applied to them that had no documentation as to why they received a credit. That's another opportunity to take money that was actually paid and then just write a credit for it. And that's why one of our suggestions will be that any type of credit to a statement has to be authorized by more than one person.
And those names, and I don't know the names that you're referencing, but that list of names is easily identified. You have that list, correct?
We have a stack of statements.
That showed someone was given a credit. So, can't we take care of that problem? Figure out who was given a credit and why?
That goes back several years.
How many were there? Were there hundreds or thousands or?
We looked at a little over 200 statements. Some of those had credits, some of those didn't.
Would you say it's 10 or 100? Closer to 10 or closer to 100?
I'd say closer to 100.
Okay, so we can get that list of names and identify those folks and.
Or you can get that stack of statements. But there may be a logical reason why they were given adjustments. It could be many reasons.
Shouldn't we follow up on that? Why were they given credits?
Well, let her answer, Brent.
And how would you follow up on some owner was given a credit
Talk to your own.
2 years ago, and it was taken off their account? And was that credit a payment that they actually made? Was it a correction of a late fee? Was it the correction of a mowing fee?
Yeah, I don't know why they were given a credit, but I think getting the answer is more important than leaving the suspicion out in the community that hundreds of people were given credits, and we don't know why. We're just assuming that it was an underhanded deal. So, and I'm not saying you're assuming that.
No,
I'm saying-
it's a question of a lack of documentation on who
Poor practices.
authorized that,
Poor practices.
for
Sure.
practices.
That can certainly be improved, but to get to the bottom of the question, if somebody was given credits, why don't we call them up and ask them why Or they're gonna credit us.
Or show us the check and pay for it. Yeah, let's do it.
Why don't we take that under consideration and see if there's a practical way to do that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Although if the customer, the homeowner's got a credit and then they pay their next statement, it'll be very difficult to convince them to reverse that credit and pay up some more money that they thought they already had. Be interesting.
And some of these
I don't wanna
statements
talk
go
to 'em.
back years, yeah.
Certainly, if there was a trend of somebody that got a credit, we really want to talk to them, right?
Absolutely. Maybe there was collusion. Collusion. Maybe there was a question out here.
There weren't any credits online with it. Little credit, this time.
Let's check those. All right, any other questions?
Answers.
Very well done.
Gardner, I'm sorry, question? Anybody? All right, thank you, David.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving to item number B, the ISAC report. I haven't received anything from our representative, Stan Holsey. Carter, could you speak to anything going on at ISAC?
Right now, we're working on the HDR report of repairs on the Packard Channel. And they gave us three options, I guess you'd say. And we chose the middle one, which was their recommendation. And now we're looking for almost $15 million. And so we're considering and have started the processes of renewing the TIRZ, which is the tax increment refinance zone that pays for the maintenance and dredging of the channel. So that's what ISAC is doing right now.
All right. Thank you. Any questions from the board? No? All right, let's move on to member comments. I don't have the list. Did you bring up the list?
Sure, I'll bring it up. Don't want it?
Thanks, man. All right, first on the list, David Dare.
Yes.
Come on up, sir.
Okay.
Have the podium.
Thank you very much.
If you're going to speak about your request for a variance, that would, as I said, that'll be done later in the meeting. But you're certainly welcome to your 3 minutes of.
No, it's for the variance.
Okay, well, then if you wouldn't mind waiting until you present that variance to the board.
Okay. You're on your way.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So we see all the variances at the same time.
Mr. Potter, George Potter.
I'll get to it first, that's pretty cool.
My name is George Potter. I've been a property owner on the island for about 5 years. I am a candidate for the board. I just wanted to say, I feel we're very lucky to be living here at the island. I was blessed last week to participate in the Toys for Tots parade. We spent much of the week picking up presents for the children that don't have so much. It was a great experience, and I must say, I met so many wonderful neighbors. We then had the opportunity to once again watch the beautiful boat decorations for the Posada. And a pickup boat picked up all of the toys we collected and that others had brought. Again, I feel lucky to be a part of so many good neighbors with a wonderful environment of the island. The sun, the beach, the outdoor activities and recreations. I thank you all for making it such a great place to live.
Andres, I'm
Executive
sorry.
session.
Executive session for you, sir, okay. Peggy Shirley.
You have to go there? Well, I'm Peggy Shirley, and I want to be, I had sent out a letter to the Architecture Control Committee and the board members earlier regarding Island Fairway Estates and my concerns in that particular subdivision with the covenants. And as a property owner in Island Fairway Estates, and a member of the Padres community since 1979, I'd like to voice my concern, excuse me, my throat's not good, regarding the never-ending saga of covenant violations. Not to be confused with palm trees and grass, but actual construction practices and construction of structures not first approved by the ACC or the Board of
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Is it okay? Considering Island Fairway Estates Block 30, lots 1 through 45 are unique to the island community. The lots border on the once active golf course, but the main thing is green areas and lakes and ponds, separating the subdivision from other properties, and sporting an enormous amount of nature's wildlife. Wildlife not to be hunted, but to be enjoyed. The rules of the ACC should be well known to the committee, and the committee should be tuned to the particular amenities and or restrictions of each subdivision. And I'll just skip some of my other stuff and go straight to Island Fairway Estates is accumulation of various property and property uses, including share lawn. So we're talking mainly with Block 30, which is a residential area, and we have had the covenants changed there. I would say we're on our third amendment to the original covenants. I don't know if there's a fourth, but I know there's a third, and that's my biggest concern. So I'll skip to the 1995 Third Amendment for Island Fairway Estates. Paragraph 5 clearly states, fences and walls now reads, no fence shall be constructed higher than 4 feet unless approved by the Architectural Control Committee. So, with all of the amendments, you would think there could be some confusion for some properties that might be grandfathered. The first house was built in 1995 because our company built it. So there should not be any confusion. This is the rule that started with the first construction. So aside from the other numerous concerns with construction exceeding 12 months, time frames stated in the covenants, boat trailer parking and so forth and so on. So the main thing is the fences being 4 feet. Foremost is the ACC's responsibility to enforce the covenants, not waive them, not dismiss the violations. The covenants of the subdivision, though not perfect, reflect a lifestyle for Island Fairway Estates. The covenant should be upheld for all purposes. I'd like to state that all owners should be responsible for permitting any and all improvements on the land they own. I realize in this day and age, too many people seek forgiveness instead of permission. And that's really not the judgment call in these cases. So my request to the ACC and the board members.
Wrap it up.
Yes. Of the Padres Property Owners Association is simply enforce the covenants that exist for the owners. Period. Thank you.
All right, next on the list, Henry Quigley. Mr. Quigley?
Thank you, Marvin.
You're welcome, sir.
I was going to address the board with regard to the appointment for the vacancy that exists. It seems to me like it's taking way too long to do this. I think the period for signing up was way too long, but it's already a fact. We're talking about, I think it expires on the 15th or 16th. Seems to me that you ought to be able to do the interviews within 2 or 3 days, that you ought to notice a special meeting of the board for the 4th day, and you ought to have that special meeting, and you ought to appoint somebody to the vacancy. It is not a good idea to go for a long period of time with a vacancy on the board. If you were to appoint somebody fairly quick, then that person would be read in and knowledgeable by the time the January meeting of this board takes place, and I think that's what needs to be done. Thank you.
Next, Sandy Graves.
Well, I'm kind of landlocked, so I just wanted to wish you guys all a happy and Merry Christmas. And I wanted to personally thank you for the Channel Norfolk Post. Very visible going over the JFK Causeway Bridge, so I just wanted to thank you. It's a good step in the right direction to make voting a lot more safe out there. That's it.
Next, Richard Bittman.
Richard Pittman, 14325 Caree. Been on the island for 30 years. I've been a Corpus Christian for over 40 now. So I'm here to address 2 letters that I ended up writing to the Padre Island Moon. These letters to the editor. One of them ended up being about the last board meeting on October the 23rd. So I sent this letter in on October the 30th to be in the November the 1st publication. I got an email back from the editor saying we'll run it on November the 8th. That was going to be something that I was looking forward to. So it did not run in the November 8th edition. So I sent it again on November the 13th to run in the November the 15th edition. That did not run in the November the 15th edition either. You can read this on Padre Island Fact Check. This never got published. I wrote another letter on December the 4th, which never got published. I'm going to read this letter to you because it's about a meeting that took place on November the 28th. Its title is, Since Where Does Transparency Mean Secret Meetings? And the social media has already ended up addressing, if it was a secret meeting, how did you know about it? Guys, the meeting was secret on the 28th. It took place with 3 board members, an executive director, and the CPA, and it was secret on the 28th. Nothing is secret forever. Secrets get out, and it got out. On November the 28th, Marvin, Marta, Nick, and Jim Smock had a meeting with the POA auditor at the POA office. Brent, Darrell, and Carter were not invited to this meeting. They were not told about the meeting by any of the parties at the meeting. They found out about it on their own. Brent, Darrell, and Carter, as of December the 4th, when I wrote this letter, still had not been given any information about the agenda or what was discussed, despite requesting the information directly. Why are these secret meetings being held? Why are members of the POA board being blatantly excluded from the important business? Many of us voted for these members that were excluded. They need to be included. This is not transparency, nor is it an honest way to run an organization. I again encourage those of you that are not following what is happening to the POA to start paying close attention to these continuing kind of issues. The social media is a master at the twist and taking facts and conveying them in a different way to all of you. and I see you over there laughing right now. But that
I
is
was
what
I was
goes there.
victimized earlier
Yeah,
this month.
exactly, right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
So,
victimized.
Light it up.
Very good. I would like to go into the markers because I'm happy to have them, but I know the history of the markers. I worked on those from September the 17th to September 2017 to October 2018. Anybody that really wants to know the facts about what took place, there ended up being, these all could have been in, there was the old board had a majority vote in April of last year.
Time's
There were
up.
4 votes in September. That could have been done a long time ago. But I'm happy to have them.
All right. Nancy Tressa.
When I signed in this evening, I really had a topic, because I wanted to let the meeting play out. And I want to agree totally with Mr. Pittman's comments. As a member of the quote, old board, we were accused many times of holding secret meetings. None of which were fact-checked, none of which occurred. But it's real obvious to me that there are some board members currently being excluded from some very important meetings. And I think there's a great number of residents who are being excluded, maybe because they're not paying attention, or they're too busy, or whatever excuse they may have. But I agree totally with Mr. Pittman. There are a lot of residents out here that need to kind of wake up, start paying attention, not to the social media, but start paying attention to what's actually occurring out here. And a lot of it is not good, folks. So that's all I have to say, and Merry Christmas to all. And to all of you.
John Miners. Come on up, John.
Hi there, John Miners, 13902 Eagles Nest Bay. I'd like to speak in favor of allowing vehicles and trailers to be parked on residents' property. We all knowingly moved into a canal community with the understanding that immaculately manicured properties were not a requirement, and boat trailers were parked everywhere. In my opinion, operable and properly registered personally used boats, trailers, and RVs should be allowed to be parked in plain sight as long as they're in compliance with city and state codes. At the last board of directors meeting, Tom Cable for the Architectural Control Committee presented some recommendations for parking restrictions to the board. I'm not sure what's in that document, but I believe it contains rules based on length and/or number of axles. I'm against any such restrictions. Again, I believe any properly registered, operable, personally used boat, trailer, or RV should be allowed on a homeowner's property in accordance with city and state codes. When I purchased my first house here in 2001, I did my research on parking restrictions, and vehicles and trailers were allowed. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and while most people, myself included, may not find many vehicles and trailers attractive, they were part of the landscape that we all moved into. Boat trailers can be allowed, other trailers and vehicles should also. I find it unlikely a rule to restrict boat trailers would go over well in this community. Please note I am only advocating for properly registered and operable personally used vehicles and trailers. Not advocating for commercial, inoperable, unregistered vehicles, trailers, or boats. The vast majority of the vehicle issues Tom Cable discussed last meeting are outside the scope of what I'm advocating for. Bottom line, it's my driveway. I should be allowed to park my personal vehicles and trailers in it. That's what I bought into, and in my opinion, that's how it should stay. Thank you for telling me.
Next up is Dana Sisk.
Good evening, my name is Dana Sisk. I live at 13942 Primavera Drive. I have been a property owner of Potter Island for over 20 years, really. Bought out here when working class people could still afford it. I have, most of those years, just paid my dues, did my best to vote for qualified board candidates, and that was it. And in fact, a year ago, I wouldn't have known any of you on board if I'd met you on the street, including Carter, who's hard to miss and actually lives on my street. I could not help but notice the drama that surrounded the election this past spring, and so I began paying a little more attention to POA business. I'm concerned about some of the financial decisions that have been made by this board. I am a CPA with over 20 years of experience managing large financial institutions. I was concerned when the board voted to approve $50,000 for a CPA to perform a special audit as needed for up to 5 years. While I completely agree that it makes sense to hire expertise to clean up sloppy bookkeeping and to take care of the required annual audit, I do not see value, and I still don't see value, in auditing past years that have already been audited by a qualified CPA firm, especially given the findings that were given tonight. I urge this board to invest in the resources for the future financial health of the POA and do not chase immaterial accounting issues from the past. I'm also concerned about a lack of budget discussions in recent months. I hope that you guys will work on more budget accountability and sharing that information with the ownership. I have two last requests for the board tonight. First, I would, as some others have stated, ask that you put aside your personal differences, fulfill your duty to the property owners by appointing someone to fill that vacant board seat without further delay. I believe you have a good pool of candidates. I would encourage you to select someone with financial expertise. Second, I would ask that you work toward greater transparency in your financial oversight of the POA. I believe that the duty to protect the financial stability of this organization applies to all board members. And therefore, I believe that all meetings with reports from CPA firms and other relevant financial information should be available to all board members. I read Mr. Jones' letter to the Islandmen where he stated, and I quote, "The role of corporate officers is not always understood and sometimes not accepted by other board members." And to that I would say that withholding information about the financial condition of this organization from other board members does not sound like transparency. I would respectfully remind Mr. Jones, Mr. Pelosi, Ms. Sprout, that all 6 of you were elected by the property owners who trusted you to represent our interests. And while Mr. Moore, Mr. Scanlon, and Mr. Tate are no longer officers of this board, they should absolutely have equal opportunity to represent those who voted for them. Thank you all for your service, and wish you a Merry Christmas.
Travis King.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Travis King. I live at 13905 Hawks Nest Bay Drive. I would like to talk about 2 issues tonight. One is the board vacancy appointment. The deadline is December 16th, I think it's Saturday. I've read some of the biographies of 6 candidates that have submitted to be appointed, and they all reflect some extremely qualified candidates, and I think it's a great reflection of the kind of talent that exists on the island. And now the board here, you've stated multiple times that only the board has the ability to appoint members. Members don't have the ability to vote in, only the board does. So I strongly suggest that you should do it without delay, and I strongly suggest a special meeting next Tuesday. After the deadline, make it happen. Second thing is there's allegations of bullying against the executive director. On November 17th, the following was posted on social media by several property owners that have had a long history of making false and malicious allegations to islanders. Here is an excerpt. On Thursday night, just as the POA office was about to close, board members Moore and Tate showed up at the office to bully and abuse Mr. Smock. Even though the door was closed, their insults and abuses could be heard around the office. Beyond the employees, a member was in the lobby and heard their abuse. This was posted by Jim McFadden, husband of POA candidate Kelly McFadden. They went on to post the following. I asked that President Jones admonish Moore and Tate at the next public meeting. I asked that President Jones bar those 2 board members from the offices. Board member Nick Colosi then gave credibility to these accusations when he took to social media to attack Mr. Moore and Mr. Tate. Instead of looking for the truth, he posted as if the allegations were already fact. Quote, Moore and Tate are again trying to drive off good staff to return to the POA office to a private club. Perhaps Mr. Smock should file a hostile workplace complaint. That's Nick Colosi. I ask that the board publicly set the record straight tonight, and if need be, issue an apology to those who were falsely accused. In the past year, Islanders have been repeatedly subjected to multiple false allegations by these same individuals. Many of them were false allegations of criminal activity. This should not be acceptable to anyone that believes in truth and justice. That simply does not reflect island values, Texan values, for that matter, American values. So please do the right thing. Let's hear the truth. Let's set the record straight. Thank you.
Next up, Nita Smith.
I'm Nita Smith, 13518 King Philip Court. After hearing all the glowing reports about all the markers being in the canals, I actually went out today, when it wasn't raining and cold and dark, to admire them. And what I found was that all the markers were not in place. Even though in sometime October, middle October, the Coast Guard gave us notice 30 days, fix them or else. Well, we could have gotten them done because back in June, the first board voted, this board voted for a maintenance contract. We're going to do them a couple at a time. Then again, in August, there were 2 email votes. Yeah, we're going to do the markers. Any markers done? No. Then in October, we get a letter from the Coast Guard. Do it or else. Well, 30 days have passed. We filed for an extension, I understand, begging for another 90 days, which would get us close to a year. What I found when I went out this afternoon, all the markers are not in the North Channel. They're not. Number 1, 3, 5 are there, so is number 15. But 7, 9, 11, 13, nowhere to be seen. And then there's the South Channel, one I get to use. The one that has no markers to show where to turn to get in and out from the intercoastal. Now that's a treat. Any of you that were out trying to find it, I'm glad y'all had escorts. Everybody said they did a great job. I'm glad they were there for you. They're never there for me when I'm coming in and out. They've been gone for almost a year now. We have a corporate officer, I read in the paper, who's in charge of making sure that things get done. Well, he was working for me. Enough said. Thank you for your question.
All right, moving on, Kay Walker.
Quick, because I think I'm repeating a lot of other comments, but I just want to urge this board to get the vacancy filled before the next meeting. All 6 of you, get it done. On November 15th, the first deadline to announce if you wanted to be appointed, we had a bunch of very well qualified candidates. For some reason, the deadline got extended to December 16th. You have gotten plenty of time to look at the qualifications, which the names I've seen, you've got some great people that are willing, Lord knows why, to do this. Do your job and get it done before the January meeting so there can get some business done and we can move forward on this island. Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Next on the agenda is the president's comments, board of director vacancy. Okay. We had a sign up for people to register to run for the election. And during that time period, we had a board member resign. It was confusing for people to determine whether they were running or asking to be appointed. So they separated them and did the appointment after the running so people wouldn't get confused over what they were signing up for. Now, the period to sign up to be appointed ends on the 15th. I believe there was a typo in wherever it appeared, but it's really the 15th, which is a Saturday, which means if somebody wants to go forward with the typo, which is a Sunday, fine. So by Monday, we'll have our final list. After that, we'll conduct interviews, and then after that, votes will be taken on whoever the board chooses. That's the procedure. The property code is what determines how all of this works, and that's basically it. All right. Item B, assistant secretary appointment. We have, as we have no secretary, Heather has volunteered to be the secretary and take notes for tonight only. She has a very narrow scope here. The bylaws allow the board to appoint an assistant secretary for specific functions. Later tonight, we'll ask for a motion and a vote on that, but Heather's doing a great job. Okay. Now, the board has made some terrific progress in the last several months. Remember when Billish Park didn't have any electricity, it had weeds, it didn't have any mulch. All right, all that's gone away. The park is in pretty good shape. You heard Mr. Thompson tonight talking about it, so we made a lot of progress there. The books and accounts, you heard the CPA tonight talk about the problems and issues with the accounting process. 17 is cleaned up. It's going to be time soon to talk about 18's audit. Our bylaws require a yearly audit. So 18's on deck, so to say. The good news is that starting in 2019, we will have a clean set of books to move forward with and should be able to generate all the financial statements every month that are needed. Heretofore, the data was bad, as you heard her saying, that it was difficult to put out the proper financial statements. Okay. The markers are going in. We've got a topic on updating on the markers and the channels. We'll save that for them. Bank account consolidation. We have consolidated from 4 or 5 bank accounts almost down to 2. We're closing one at the current time. Then we're going to do deposits by electronic check. You put the check on the scanner, it goes to the bank. Saves the delays getting the deposits made, as Ms. Jayroe mentioned. We have new staff from the time around, I guess, what was it, September? No, I'm sorry, April or May, when everybody left the organization. We've got a new staff. We have a new executive director, which we're very happy to have. He's doing a great job. Litter Critter is back. And that's a city program, but we have had communications with the city over that, and now it's on a regular schedule. People seem to take advantage of that. We're also doing direct deposit payroll, so the employees get their money sent directly to their bank. That's a big improvement over the way things were done in the past. All right. Now, for next year. All right, we've got to get through our election season. The ballots for the election will be going out in January, which is routine. Then we'll have the annual meeting in March, early March. One of our top priorities for next year is the data management system that the POA uses for homeowners, accounts payable, receivable, all that kind of thing. Jim's been working on that. One of the things we really want to have is a homeowner portal. So you can go right online into the system and see your specific account and information about you. Okay? Another thing we're going to do next year is get the website redone. Our website is very difficult to work with. It's out of date, so on. We need emails of members. We're looking at ways to come up with incentives to get the members to give us their email so we can communicate that way. We're going to begin an accounts receivable collection program. What she didn't mention is that we have over $430-some thousand in accounts receivable that hasn't been paid in the last 3 years. So we're going to work on a system to collect that. Our new attorney, Mr. Kagels, his law firm specializes in accounts receivable collection. We have a terrible problem collecting money here. We're going to work with the code enforcement for more compliance. Our code enforcement officer here on the island, her name's Elizabeth. She comes by the office periodically, and Kathy talks to her on a regular basis about getting lots mowed, indigent houses, that kind of thing. We're going to get the 2018 audit underway. One of the things that we definitely have to do is take a look at our covenants. Our covenants, in many cases, are out of date. They're in conflict with different jurisdictions, or different subdivisions, rather. Well, that's a real problem. Bulkhead. We hope to install some sort of bulkhead database that Heather's been talking about, that we can then record when the properties are repaired, that kind of thing. We also need some sort of risk assessment program to determine what kind of money we want to save for future disasters, or allocation for repairing not bulkheads, but boat ramps and that kind of thing. Let's see. So we've got a lot on our plate for next year, although I think we've made some great accomplishments in the last several months moving this forward. We'll have some extra money left over from the park. It will be up to the city and the POA to decide how to spend it. Greg Smith, our city councilman, has a donor that's interested in working with us in the city to make a donation for such things as shade structure and so on. Maybe a soccer field of some kind. All right. Moving on. Item 6, Executive Director Report. Jim?
Well, thank you, Marvin. Good evening, everyone. And I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and to you and yours all good things in 2019, in the new year, and to the POA, certainly. I'd like to thank the staff. If you'll bear with me, I wrote their names down so I would not forget. But I'd like to thank Lori Stevens, Danny Graves, Kathy Schofield, Sam Anderson, Heather Cooley-Cox, who's here with us this evening, Pete Alsop, who is also, there you are, Pete, Anita Sanchez, and she was here earlier, Diana Reed. Anita and Diana are our two newest members. Anita is the bookkeeper, and that has been a hot topic tonight, bookkeeping. And she's doing a wonderful job. She has a great resume. She actually taught accounting here in Corpus Christi. She has great references. She did pass her background check. No felonies, no misdemeanors, all good. And I'd also like to recognize Diana Reed, who is the newest of the new. She is the executive assistant, and she is our Jacqueline, I suppose, of all trades. She is assisting Heather as we speak, getting the mailing list ready to go for the candidates to use in their individual campaigns. I'd also like to thank all the volunteers, those past and present and future. No nonprofit can function without volunteers. Whether that's the people who serve on the committees, the board members, or people who occasionally help in the office. I don't think you can thank volunteers enough because they put up with a lot of stuff, shall we say, and they don't get paid. So thank you to the volunteers, and if you're interested in volunteering and you have some particular expertise, please contact me, jim@pipoa.net, jim@pipoa.net. By the way, we are 2 weeks away from Christmas, so if you're on the nice list, congratulations. If you're on the naughty list, well, you and I have some work to do. I'm going to give some dates to you. So if you're flipping your calendars to 2019, here you go. I'm going to steal Alan Rickardson's thunder a little bit, but I know he'll forgive me because he's a forgiving kind of guy. The Compliance Committee is meeting tomorrow, December 12th at 6 o'clock at the POA office. I know Alan and his committee have a presentation they're going to be making and discussing issues concerning compliance, obviously. So if you can, please join us. The next board meeting is Tuesday, January 22nd, 5:30 here again at the church. The annual meeting that Marvin mentioned is going to be Saturday, March 9th at the middle school where it has previously been. More information will be forthcoming on that. This concerns the elections, and I'll have more to say about this in a few minutes, but we have 2 meet and greet events scheduled. Saturday, January 19th from 10 a.m. to noon, and then Thursday, February 21st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. They will both be here. The January 19th event, though, will be in the sanctuary, as I understand it. The February 21st meeting will be here in this room. We did have the candidate drawing last week for ballot order on December 6th. We had a 2-step process to make it as random and by chance as possible to determine ballot order. I know you've probably all seen this, but the ballot order is Kelly McFadden, Judith Cutright, Robert Algio, Daniel R. Brown III, George R. Potter, and Brian T. McCabe. Vacancies, or open vacancy, or vacancy on the board, that too has been a hot topic this evening. To date, Sandy Graves, Shul Kim McGuire, Daniel R. Brown III, George R. Potter, Brian T. McCabe, and Alan Guggenheim have all requested appointment to the vacant position. Please note that Daniel R. Brown III, George R. Potter, and Brian T. McCabe are also running for the board. We have contracted with Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and Dr. Dan Jorgensen in the Political Science Department there at the university to once again collect, tally, display, and then announce the vote on March 9th. The ballots will go out on approximately January 10th. The bylaws state that the ballots must be sent no less than 10 days prior to election and no greater than 60 days prior to election. So if we do it on January 10th, we are giving people, per the bylaws, the most time in which to receive the ballot and cast the ballot. As you are probably all familiar with more than I, you will send the ballots by various means available to you to Dr. Jorgensen's team. The office will have nothing to do with ballots once they are sent to the membership. We will not replace ballots, whether they are not received or they are spoiled. We will not answer questions about the election other than the most basic housekeeping type questions, such as when is the annual meeting or when is a meet and greet. And this is to keep the office neutral and out of the politics. We live in a political organization. You vote for these ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen, to represent you. With politics sometimes comes things that nobody particularly likes. But again, one goes with the other. But the office will stay out of politics. And I insist and demand that you leave the office out of the politics. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what your agenda is. I don't care who you support or where you do not support. But neutrality and integrity of the office is of utmost importance to me and to the staff. And so I ask that you please respect that. Consider us civil servants. The political appointees who run departments come and go, but the employees, the civil servants of those departments, are there before and after an appointee serves his or her term. And their goal, we assume all good intentions, is to further the interests of that department and to serve the membership. And that's what the office staff and I wish to do and want to do. If you have any Star Trek fans out there, remember the Prime Directive. The Prime Directive says that the Federation, Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Scotty, all the gang, will not interfere or involve themselves in the matters of another planet or civilization. That is our Prime Directive in the office. In fact, I had a meeting last week with the staff. We all said Merry Christmas. Somebody brought in donuts. They were really good. But the purpose of the meeting was to say, stay out of the politics. Now, obviously, we have staff people who are members here. They get to vote. But I said to them, when you came to work here, you traded a little bit of your political freedom to work here. And if you're out campaigning for a particular candidate, you jeopardize your neutrality and the integrity of this office. What you do when you vote is of no concern to me. Politicking is of concern to me, and it will not be tolerated. So I please ask that you help me, that you help the staff to carry out what I think is the most important mission, that we are neutral in this election. We neither help nor hinder any candidate. So thank you in advance. As someone said, I'm just getting started. No, really, I will try to be brief. Cover to borrow. I met with an engineering firm last week, CASA Engineering. They are preparing an analysis and an RFP for us to repair the parking lot there. Included in the RFP will be the engineer's estimate of what the repairs that they outline should be done should cost. So that when we go to send the RFP to various contractors, we will not be going in blind. We will have some number, we will have a benchmark with which to begin. So if they say 50 grand and someone comes back and says 100 grand, we have some questions we're going to certainly want to ask, as an example. Billish Park, this has been discussed. We are currently looking at 4 maintenance bids, total maintenance bids. By that I mean the irrigation, the lawn mowing, the fertilization, herbicide, weeding, etc. That way we do not have people pointing fingers at each other if something goes wrong. We have one source to go to. Marvin mentioned the website. We are in the process of wrestling away the domain names from 121 server, which is the present host, and getting those to CCITTX, who is our current IT provider. Marvin also mentioned the property management software. We have looked, and other people have been part of these discussions with our present system, which is TOPS, Professional, Info Tracker, Appfolio, and Buildium. Without getting into the numbers, at this point, I would be inclined to stay with TOPS. Well, let me qualify that. To go to the new TOPS, which is called TOPS 1. TOPS has excellent customer service, and as we've been preparing the mailing list and we've had other questions for them, their customer service has been superb. Other companies could take a lesson from them. And so there is value in that, especially when we get into that what do we do now situation. So, more to come on that. We need to issue statements next month. We obviously need to get through the election, and I have been advised by several people, you don't want to change software systems when you've got these two big events staring you in the face. And lastly, I'd like to address, and I will frankly share with you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm loath to do it. I really am. There's been a lot of talk on social media, and it was raised tonight about the meeting that took place on November 15th at the POA office between among two board members and me. I said on Facebook, I don't comment on meetings with board members, and I'm not going to comment now on the substance or what was discussed. If the board members choose to reveal that, that is their prerogative. I don't censor anybody, just me. I want to say, though, and I will say this again in executive session, but you're all sitting there and you've been so patient, that our meeting was civil, our meeting was correct, our meeting was polite. What others may have thought they heard, or were told by yet again someone else that they heard, you know, I can't change their opinion, and people will think what they want. But the meeting was correct, it was civil, it was polite, and frankly, I did not feel at any time that I was bullied. I will say that when these two gentlemen showed up, I'm like, Jesus, it's the end of the day, I want to go home. I was tired, you know, and the beer was chilling, you know what I mean? But seriously, it was a good meeting. All meetings are productive. It doesn't mean that we all sing kumbaya and hug at the end. Far from it. But there is a difference between bullying and having genuine, reasonable disagreements among reasonable people. And that is the last I will say on that. And on a personal note, finally, and going back to the prime directive, I insist that people in the political realm, or in any realm, leave me out of the disagreements or battles or enmities that exist between and among people. Not everyone likes me, I don't like everybody. That was a great bit of advice my father told me at a wee age when I was the only one who didn't get invited to Johnny's birthday party. Not that I'm holding him grudges. Johnny. Never let Johnny know. Anyway, please leave me out of it. I understand that people, like I said, they have their differences, you have history, that is not my concern. Your differences may be very real, very legitimate, very visceral. I understand that, but leave me out. Fight it out among yourselves. Whether it's on social media or you go behind the POA office and say, put up your dukes, I don't really care. Actually, I do care. Don't fight on POA property. But I hope through my humor and a bit of self-deprecation, you will understand my meaning and respect my request. And on that note, since we have a ways to go, Mr. President, I will yield.
Thank you.
you, Jim. Your words are well received, I'm sure. All right, consent agenda number 7. We don't have a secretary, so Jim, can you tell us about the minutes?
Yes, actually, what I have in front of me are the October 23rd board meeting minutes. The members have received these minutes. I always appreciate Heather, but I appreciated her today more so, although it was about 4:45 when she mentioned this to me. So that was not too fun, but she did point out to me an error in the minutes. And Heather, if I may be permitted to ask Heather to speak to this, because she is more familiar with this than I am, can you discuss the error? It had to do with a mooring line and the number of feet, I believe?
Correct. As written, it shows where the property owner, 14810 Common Bar, was requesting an extension of, 15 feet?
Yeah, there was an issue where a variance was requested asking to add 10 feet to a boat dock on Poa Compliance. I believe that 10 feet is an error.
Yeah, they currently have a 10-foot mooring line. They're requesting an additional 5 feet to be able to then construct a deck dock at a total of 15 feet out. So what was written, when those were proposed, they were not done correctly.
So I would suggest, Mr. President, that the board may want to consider making a motion to amend the minutes to properly reflect what was requested at the October 23rd meeting for this issue.
All right. Would anyone care to make a motion to that?
I will.
All right, there's a motion before to amend it to reflect Heather's analysis. Is there a second?
Second.
Nick seconds. Discussion, please.
Let's fix it.
Brent?
Can you restate the motion, please?
Jim, would you restate that?
I'm looking at the meeting minutes, and this is on, for references, learn as we go. This is on the next to last page, where Christine Gallegos asking for a variance to add 10 feet to a boat dock on Poa Compliance. That should read 15 feet, am I correct, Heather?
No, add 5.
Add 5 feet to a boat dock, because we're already at 10. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, now discussion.
Is coming up with the architect today?
Yes, so you're gonna make the changing to everything, will stay the same, exactly how it's written, just changing the 10 foot up.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, this is just about the minutes, it's not about an ACC matter.
Right.
Going once? Going twice? 3 times. All right, let's call the question. The vote is all in favor of amending the minutes as posed. Please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Any additional discussion about the minutes from October 23rd? Yes? No? All right, can we then accept the minutes? We don't need to vote on that, it's a consent matter. Any objection to accepting the minutes? No? All right, accepted. Moving on to item number 8, Compliance Committee minutes. Alan Rickardson, come on up.
I'd like to give the board kind of a timetable that the Compliance Committee is working on. On March 13th, which will be a regular committee meeting, we're going to approve the plan, a tentative plan to give to the board. On March 14th, we're gonna put it out for public comment for 20 days. We're gonna put it on social media, maybe in the Moon if it's not too long. POA, Facebook, website, anywhere we can think of. If you have places you want it put, you can let me know. After the 20 days, we're gonna ask the POA office to compile all comments they get. And then we're gonna have another meeting on our April meeting, which will be the 10th. Our meetings are on the second Wednesday. And we will finalize, go over the comments we get, finalize our recommendation, and we'll give it to the board in April at their board meeting. So that'll be the final recommendation will be turned in then. All right. One of the things I wanted to bring up at our November meeting, the committee was made aware of another problem that will need to be addressed concerning POA compliance. During the last few months, while the POA office was attempting to work with the city on getting lots mowed, it was discovered that the POA is not held in the highest esteem by the powers that be at the city's compliance department. It seems that somewhere in the past, certain individuals in positions of leadership in the POA were caught using and/or attempting to use city code enforcement department people to, for the lack of a better word, punish island residents who dared to question POA policies. Due to this lack of trust, the city enforcement department is now hesitant to respond to requests from the POA. So one of the things we're going to do is request a meeting with the city compliance people and some of the board and see if we can mend fences. The next meeting will be tomorrow night at the POA office at 6 o'clock. You're all welcome. Comments are welcome. Any questions?
Yeah, Brent.
So you just made a statement that you're going to have the compliance folks from the city and some of the board. What does that mean? What do you mean by some of the board?
I don't know. We haven't decided yet. I was going to ask Jim to set up a meeting someday, and whenever it's handy, and whoever wants to come, I guess, can come.
Sure. How about we just agree tonight that it's all of the board, all of the board members?
I don't care if you can all come. We're going to the city office probably.
Okay. That'd be great. My office is a block away.
All right. Well, Jim, you can work on that. We haven't discussed it at the meeting. That was just brought up at the end of our last meeting by a member. We don't really know much about it yet. It just was recommended that we maybe need to work on mending some fences if we want the people to help.
Mr. Jones, I'd also like a couple of other things. Mr. Smock, I appreciate your report tonight and your openness, and something I'd like to bring up. I think it's very, very valid what you said about the staff and leaving people out of politics and the social media and all that.
Okay, are you going to talk about the compliance or something?
Yes, sir, if you'll let me finish my statement.
Okay.
So I think that's very valid. I also think it's very valid for folks who are chairing positions on behalf of the POA, specifically the compliance committee. I've been contacted by many, I'd say more than 10 in the last month, about posts and letters and visits they've had by the compliance committee. The posts that have been on social media with snarling dogs, direct attacks on board members from the compliance committee chair, references like this. I know compliance folks down at the city that are no issues, work with them all the time. So I would expect those rules that you set for the staff would also go for the committee chairs and the committee members. We all need to work together to better the island.
Mr. President, may I respond?
Please do.
I do want to clarify I am responsible for the staff. I hire the staff. I discharge the staff. I appreciate, Mr. Moore, your comments, but the committees are accountable to the board. They are not accountable to me, and I kind of like it that way, actually. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record. Thank you so much.
Yes, Jim, I guess my response here was, I think when you made your announcement or your report tonight, that I saw everybody's head shaking yes on the board. So I would expect that we all agree with your approach, and that we should carry that onto the committees and the responsibilities there.
All right.
Am I done?
Do you have anything else you'd like to comment on?
No,
For your
probably
report?
not.
All right.
The only thing I would like to do, if I'm not responsible to you, Jim, how come I get an email every morning after the meeting wanting the minutes?
I'm just damn awfully efficient.
Give her a bit. Well, let's be even more efficient. Move on. Architectural control, Tom Cable.
First, I'd like to just address something generally. It was a member comment, but I'm not addressing the comment. I just want a general clarification. Since 1992, when the subdivision covenant amendment was made, the ACC really has no authority or power for much of anything. And an AC recommendation for rule change doesn't have a whole lot of more weight than if a general member were to make one. But even so, just so that there's a little bit of peace about this, no recommendation has been made to limit boat traders. And this is a little bit of exaggeration, unless your yard or your house is no longer visible. The only other recommendation that was made really was that those vehicles not be parked on grass. But once again, this recommendation carries no more weight. It's like a suggestion. So I just don't want people to be concerned that the ACC is some heavy-duty powerhouse, overpowering thing. Okay, so anyway, so I'm for the report I'd like to make. We have our minutes, but I always like to make a report of what the ACC is up to and what we're doing and what we might be doing that might be of interest. So I have some brief things about that. We're now requiring that the majority of signatures of ACC members, which are 3 people, are required to approve or disapprove a project or house application. That additional effort reduces errors and discourages groundless requests for appeals. Prior to this, the ACC, only a single member was required to approve or disapprove an application. Our ACC now requires a majority of the ACC members to disapprove a variance request. In the past, only one ACC member was required. The ACC now meets twice a month instead of once a month to better accomplish our mission and to provide superior service to the membership. The ACC applies the universally accepted standard of peculiar hardship now to variance requests before considering sufficient reason. This permits variances that are de facto unpublished rules that have not been approved by the board. And we can't make a rule and have the board not approve it. In other words, we don't have the power to do that. And so we don't want to take it upon ourselves by granting a variance that would have that result. The ACC considers incongruence and harmony of design that is included in all subdivision covenants. The ACC tries to consider the ACC purpose. The ACC is charged with the preservation of the property values and of the aesthetic character of the community. The ACC studies the applicable subdivision covenants now before granting an approval or variance and not just the rule. Many times the current ACC document is in conflict with subdivision covenants. The subdivision covenants are not universal, they're not all the same. but our ACC document is written as if they are. The ACC has tasked itself to rewrite the entire ACC document. This document does not distinguish between covenants, covenant-based rules, and regular rules. As a result, approvals and variances have commonly been granted that violate the subdivision covenants. That is only a single reason for this badly needed revision. Now, just because we write it, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. In other words, we're making suggestions, it's up to the board. The ACC performs surveys of the entire POA to gather real data to determine ACC effectiveness and future actions. For example, a survey was done of the entire POA vote at city request to determine the number of natural thatched shade structures affecting the safety of the POA due to potential fire hazard. Planned future surveys are for parking and projects being constructed without a permit. One such survey will again be by vote. The ACC has requested that the board lobby and demand that the city reinstitute the policy requiring a PIPOA approved application before processing a city code application. Greg Smith, city council person, stated that he would support such an action. This would greatly reduce the number of projects and houses started and built without a POA permit. The ACC has added the following inspections and reports: pre-application inspections and reports. These speed up the application process by avoiding unnecessary disapprovals and the associated costs to the POA and the applicant. Predominantly, these involve unusual situations. A 1,000-foot front view, roof color, and wall color inspection for new home construction. These inspections help to see that the variability is maintained of our association in spite of the increase in building. Constructions inspectors by our ACC chair, who is an experienced builder, ensure the proper outcome for all the parties involved. ACC members actually assist in looking for violations in construction in process without a permit, requiring documented violation reports to the executive director. So we're actually out there in the field looking around. And I think all this field work has really helped in understanding the ACC members to get a real feel about what's going on and what needs to be done. The ACC now studies the history of the ACC and covenants to determine why things are the way they are now. Those without knowledge of history are doomed to repeat it. Currently, the historical relationship of board authority, the limited authority of the post-1992 ACC, and the major authority of the subdivision covenants are under review. So far, there have been many surprises that may require a legal opinion. And finally, I'm coming to our last topic. Kind of what I've done here, it's kind of like I've been, how would you say? I wouldn't say bragging, but I'm trying to make this argument. It's kind of like, some people have this theology of when they go to heaven, God's up there and there's this scale, right? And you put all your bad things on one side, all your good things on the other, okay? So I just listed a whole bunch of little good things, and then I'm going to tell you this one bad thing, see? And the thing about this is, I thought about talking to the ACC members first, but I didn't think they'd want to go for the witness protection plan. I even considered offering in Florida, but I still didn't think it'd work, so I went for this. So this last thing that's happened is kind of inadvertent. We have discovered that the 1992 amendment for the ACC seems to say that neither the ACC or the board can grant a variance on a covenant. And as a result, that's kind of caused a problem, and it's caused a problem for some real people with some real concerns. And so we're going to be dealing with that tonight, but what I want people to understand is this was not intended by the ACC, it's unintentional by the ACC, it's just an unfortunate thing. But it is necessary to go through it so that the POA can go forward in a better way. Appreciate your time, thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Tom. Next up on our agenda is Treasurer's Report. Nick? Oh, I'm sorry, skipped over the waterways. It's my understanding that Mr. Sargent, the chair, isn't here, and he has submitted his minutes to stand for their report. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, sir.
All right. Number 9, treasurer's report.
The monthly financial.
Wake up, everybody.
Whoa.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
we're missing something.
You've broken your name.
Yep, left my L down
I will start over. The financials and registers are included in the packet.
sir.
Can you hear this?
Now, yes.
Are in your packets. There's nothing unusual this month. I would like to tell you what has been going on with the changes, some of which CPA said and Martin also said. But I'm going to go through them for the sake of completeness and full report verification. The Financial Advisory Committee really has not had a formal meeting as such. Instead, these various things that have been done are done in sequence, which I didn't realize they were such sequential until I started talking to the banks and to the investment companies. As each stage was done, then I talked to the two of them and the bank and the investment company as to what to do next. I managed to talk to the two of them. I sometimes talked to John while he was driving his car. I even talked to Maria while she was on a cruise. We did the direct deposit and tax reports for employees that have been implemented. It's a business practice, it's cost reduction, timely reports, and increased efficiency. The electronic deposits on a daily basis, as you heard, will make better business, efficient, time-saving, and security. Credit card processing has been updated to a cost saving of 50%. An account is being established to transfer funds above $250,000 from the operating account to a money management account. This protects against uninsured loss and gains interest over our checking accounts. We are transferring the UBS account to Oxbow to form a ladder CD system. This will give us much higher interest rates. We had scheduled a meeting with Oxbow to discuss long-term investment, and the Oxbow employee had going an unexpected business trip, so I began to redo that. As far as the meeting with the auditor, she called and asked to meet with me in that she wanted to discuss her findings. She wanted to know what I wanted to pursue, what I wanted to do, and how I wanted to do it. I asked the executive director to sit in since we're going to be talking about bookkeeping and office procedures. I had the president sitting because I think the president should sit in and everything so they know what's going on. And I asked the vice president, so if the president dropped in during the meeting, she could take over a heartbeat away. There were no decisions made, most of which was discussed that meeting. She told you tonight. As far as inviting everyone to a meeting, no. You get a large group and nothing gets accomplished. I will invite the people that are involved, and I will not involve an entire crowd. Nothing gets accomplished with a large group.
All right, moving on.
Carter. I was not aware that we had a financial committee. When was that created? Doesn't the board vote on committee members for such things?
No, we don't vote on it.
The board has voting on the ACC, not committees. The chair of the committee selects the members.
Of all boards? Of all committees?
Anything but the ACC. Read the bylaws.
Doesn't know his job.
As per the bylaws. Anybody else? Generally, it's difficult to find volunteers to serve on committees, and if you can find 2 or 3 that are interested, they're pretty much a shoo-in in getting on.
Marvin, denied.
Yes, sir.
We had 2 other financial folks that were on that committee, and they got kicked off. And they were one of them was a CPA, so.
Why don't you address that question today?
Okay, Nick, we had 2 members on that committee. Both were very qualified. I've read both of their resumes. They're tremendously qualified. Why were they kicked off?
Yes, they were. First, they were not on the committee. They were being discussed when I was deciding who I wanted on the committee. The first person, we disagreed on procedures, and procedures on how to report and what the scope of the work was. We disagreed that this is one case we could not work together, although I had worked with that person on many committees, and I still do, and respect his opinions. As far as the other one, the CPA, she informed me that she was absolutely sure and had been assured there was no need for an audit. I have been frequently told that anyone who does an audit has something to hide. She also told me that there was no problem with any of the office procedures, business practices. I disagreed completely and did not want to run my committee.
Yes,
I'm sure she'll be back next month to refute what you just said.
Okay, all right, moving on.
I really just went through the bylaws, and I certainly don't see anything in here that says the chair people pick members. Oh, we can work on that later.
Yeah, I think we probably better discuss that, perhaps the interpretation is.
Let me get it later.
I
did
did.
go do that, so I want to.
All right. Let's see. Anything else, Nick? All right. Number 10, old business. Channel marker status, all right. The channel markers have been a contentious issue here for some time. The current status is that about 60% of the markers are in the north channel installed. The hope was that we could get those done for La Posada. Unfortunately, the wind, the rain, and the barge motor conked out. So it was not fully done. If the weather holds and the motor's fixed, we can go back and get those finished this week, I hope. It's awfully hard to install these things when there's a 30-mile-an-hour wind because the barge just blows off. All right. We've suffered a delay in getting the signs because, believe it or not, we have been affected by the tariffs on aluminum. The supplier we contracted with to buy the signs just gave us a short-term deadline and then came back to us and said, we can't get the aluminum. So we went back to the Coast Guard, found another supplier at the Coast Guard's referral who happened to have a supply of aluminum in the back pocket apparently, and they created the signs and shipped them. All right. This delayed it probably a couple of weeks. And of course, we hope to have all of this done, and then weather permitting, they'll be in and done by hopefully Christmas. It'll be a nice Christmas present to get them all in and finished. Now, having said that, that's the situation with the installation. There have been some comments tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Marta to discuss the issue with the Coast Guard. Marta?
I think that the most important thing everybody needs to know is that every step in this project has been authorized and directed by the Coast Guard. We've listened to and cooperated fully with them. Once we are finished, our channel markers will be in full compliance and safely guide our boaters through the channels. That has been the highest priority. And, Marvin, do you have questions? Material things you want me to address?
Can you address the issue between the Coast Guard and their certified letter and the motions to put in, to proceed with the committee's report?
Sure. Fair enough. Okay. Yes, our board passed several proposals related to putting channel markers in. Fine. The problem was that the Coast Guard, A, didn't agree with the proposals and would not approve them. The other thing is that the Coast Guard had been growing increasingly concerned about the status of our markers in our channels. So much so that Tim Boriski of the 8th District started giving us directives that had language in them that you must immediately do blah, blah, blah. There was no response to those. And the last one was a directive from Tim, and I have a whole timeline here. Anybody wants to see it? Hey, you can have it. But it's backed up by the emails, and Tim had sent a directive saying that we had to immediately file a discontinuance for 3 missing markers that had been missing for a long time. What happened with that is the board, I did the appropriate application for discontinuance, and the board did not agree. They did not want to file that discontinuance. A letter came from John Bell through Brent, and Tim's name was on the email thread, and it stated that we did not comply with his order to discontinue. And when another attorney gets involved, naturally the Coast Guard send it up to JAG, up their chain, to their legal department. Now we were in a huge legal debate with Coast Guard. To let you know how serious this is, a group of Coast Guard boats came into our channels and surveyed them for themselves. And probably the most startling thing discovered was that not one marker was put in as per our existing permits. Now, what that means is every single marker in our channels was unauthorized. You may not know this, but the Coast Guard considers that a criminal offense. Our options are very few at this point. We had the choice of either complying with the Coast Guard or facing mammoth penalties, legal actions, possibly even criminal charges. We could not allow that to happen. We have to follow the Coast Guard. And you've all read social media. I've taken a firestorm of grief about following the law. And you know what? I don't apologize, because what I was trying to do is keep this community out of a legal debate. And I'm happy to say that at this point, because of the cooperation that they have seen, because of the hard work, we have given them updates on a regular basis. We've followed every single instruction that they've asked us to do. And because of it, they are backing off on the legal part of this and giving us the opportunity to make this right. They want to mend this fence, and I think the majority of us do too. This was very difficult. Yes, a lot of people put a lot of time into this, and I'm not going to criticize any of them for that effort, but it has to follow Coast Guard law. They won't notice is not a good excuse, and it won't fly, especially after a long history of being non-compliant. Every single marker we had in our channel was unauthorized, discrepant, out of compliance, period. And it appears that they never were put in compliance to the Coast Guard. I don't know, I wasn't here when they were put in, so I will not make a judgment on that. But it has been a very difficult road, and I'll be honest with you, I will always follow the law. I don't skirt on that, because that's what you elected me to do. We are very close. Yes, we've had delays. It is really hard to get these signs when you can't get the aluminum. The factory that makes the reflective coating does not have the material, it's back ordered. Stuff like this happens. I did not cause the delay. And to answer one more question that I get blasted with a lot, I didn't ask to be in charge of anything. The Coast Guard asked me. And they asked me because I listened to them. I comprehended what he was trying to say to me, and I listened, and I did everything within my power to comply with what the Coast Guard said we had to do. And Tim Boriski told me there is one person that stood in the way of this community being in one hell of a legal battle that they cannot win, and you're looking at it. I care about you, and you know what, if I had to do it over again, I'd take all the flack all over again because you're worth it. I want you to safely pass through those channels. I want all those signs up the way they should be and put an end to this. Marvin, Nick, a lot of people have put a lot of time into getting this right. So is Tim. He has been very gracious with us. So that is where we are today. You are seeing brand new markers out there that are what they should be, that the Coast Guard will be happy with, and we're putting an end to this problem. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Carter.
Couple quick. So did we get the permit, the proper permit from the Corps and the
We are following exactly what Tim Boriski has instructed us to do. He has said, I want you to use your old permit and maintain, meaning repair, what you got. Now, to do that, you are going to have to change their locations. He said, as soon as you change those locations, you get them all done, you survey them, and I need to know where they're located, the exact coordinates. I need to know the depth at each navigation aid. Then I file a CG 2554 for change. And he has guaranteed me he will approve it. And he has ordered us to go ahead and do these changes now because of the status of these markers. They are considered unauthorized and an obstacle, which is a huge legal risk for us, and we need to change it. So that's what he's asked to do, and I said, yes, sir.
Okay, so do they meet the same size and height and pole requirements and that stuff as we've talked about before? Or did you change that to?
No, I went by the old one,
Aren't they supposed to
except
be-
that the diameter is 10 inches in diameter.
And they're supposed to be 10 feet off the water?
Yes. They have to be.
Yeah.
Well, 10 feet off the water, let me explain.
I understand medium tide, is that where you're
Okay,
going?
but maybe people don't. Depends on what time and what time of the year and what cycle in the seasons you're out there. Every effort is being made to get them 10 feet above the mean water line, which should be halfway between high tide and low tide. Now, it's challenging because it's not just a water and a solid bottom. You've got a ton of silt, you've got in some places soft sand. But every effort is being made, and if one of those poles settles, okay, we go back and we'll go out and fix it. But we are doing it for their specific guidelines on everything from the 2-inch border that has to be on there, the 12-inch numbers, the size of the signs, the size of the poles, everything.
So this is the lowest tide we have?
Or I can't tell your picture. I'm sorry.
Carter, can we take this up to another time so we can move on here? So we can argue pictures and water and so on. All right, anybody else? All right, let's move on then to old business number B. Jim?
The staff, as I had mentioned earlier, all the staff at the POA has been background checked by Reference Services Incorporated. Referred to them by Sterling Personnel, which is a personnel agency. Well, it's a franchise, but it's a local agency from whom we were introduced to Anita Sanchez, the bookkeeper. So all the employees have been background checked. As to the board members, I have received 2 consent or permission letters, if you will, from board members to perform a background check on those 2 members. Getting ready for this meeting, I was delayed, but I will do that because I have their permission to do so.
Do you have one completed? One board member?
I do not yet, no.
No? I thought you finished mine.
Well, I am working on it as we speak, okay?
Carter?
Aren't we gonna share with these people what our attorneys told us about doing this?
Certainly, if you like, the attorneys, our attorney, said that a background check cannot be made a condition of being on the board unless the crime of a felony or moral turpitude has been disclosed. So there's no enforcement action with the motion that came last month. Any board member that does not want to take and have a background check done does not have to do so.
And there can be no ramifications.
There can be no ramifications. Period. So, another way to look at that, though, would be if a board member is aware that they have one of these violations of this law from the statute, then you could be held accountable for your votes and that kind of thing, knowing that you're ineligible to be on the board. Marta?
My understanding is that those regulations don't come from our bylaws, but that's
State law.
State law. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right, it's state law.
Thank you.
Yep.
By the way, I gave Jim my permission to do a background check.
So the state laws, property code 209.00591B, which says if the board's presented with a document that says a board member has a felony or a crime of moral turpitude within the last 20 years, by operation of law, they are removed from the board. It does not require a board vote. You are excluded because of the law. There you go. All right? Jim, did you say that all of our staff has passed their background checks?
Yes, sir.
All right, good news. Moving on to number 11, new business. Meeting with the Corpus Christi Police re Cabo tomorrow. All right. The POA has had some problems with, what should we call them, rebel rousers, if you will, at the boat ramp at Cabo de Barro. Many of the residents in the area have been complaining that parties were going on the boat ramp, people were fishing, people were urinating in public, that kind of thing. They're very upset about that and felt unsafe. Therefore, in talking with the police department who came to the POA office, the captain who you met tonight asked to speak with me and Marta. Wasn't a secret meeting, folks. Right in the middle of the police department, in their office, where the captain wanted to talk about what they could do, the police department, to help us with this problem. We related the issues regarding the partying and so on, and it simply boiled down to, we'll send more policemen by there, call if you have a problem. There you go. Yes?
So essentially, if someone is breaking the law and you have illegal activity out there and they're causing a problem, the police department is willing to assist us with those sorts of issues.
I was very much impressed with Captain Sanders. He took the initiative to gain information, to bring the matter to the attention of his parole officers, and instruct them to remedy the issue. Fishermen that are out there that are not VOA members are not allowed to be there, just like you can't park your car, your boat trailer on the boat ramp. Now, we don't want these people arrested that are minding their own business and fishing. That would be kind of cruel. But if you're having a loud party, you got records or music going, and you're throwing beer cans around and trash, then the police need to deal with that. All right. Let's see, 11B, appointment of Robert Christi to ACC as co-chairman. Tom, Mr. Christi isn't here. Is he still wanting to be the co-chair?
I hope so.
Yes. All right. I think the board's familiar with Mr. Christi. Let's entertain a motion to make him the co-chair.
I make a motion that he be the co-chair of the Architectural Control Plan.
All right, thank you. A second.
I'll second.
Darrell seconds it. Discussion? No discussion? All right. Vote. All those in favor signify by saying yay and raising your hand. Yay. All right. All those opposed signify by raising your hand and going no. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Christi. A dubious distinction. All right. Now we're on to 11C, Assistant Secretary appointment. We would like to appoint Heather for tonight to be the person taking the minutes and typing them up and submitting them to the board.
Then what about next time too?
Well, I don't think she wants that job. But
She's busy.
she's busy. So the chair will entertain a motion to make Heather the Assistant Secretary for one night only and prepare the minutes and submit them to the board. And that is a very narrow scope, and she's not the secretary. She's the assistant for the minutes.
I make a motion we accept her as the Assistant Secretary tonight, for tonight's minutes.
Second. All right. Nick seconds. Do we need a discussion? No. All those in favor?
Thank you.
All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Heather. There's something extra in your paycheck.
I just want to make sure, was it Nick or Darrell?
Nick got this one, Darrell got the other one. Spread the love.
Yeah. The thin cake.
All right, that concludes this portion of our meeting. We will now adjourn, recess to go into executive session, where we will take up variances and other important matters. So if you would all excuse us, we'll take that.
Starry, starry night.